Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 250 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack for Business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franzgrote from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc.
Today's topic is Revoize, Revolutionizing Voice for Work and Beyond. From the audience perspective, how can cutting-edge technology make remote communication clearer and more personal and free of stress? Our guests today are Stanisław Raczyński and Matt Krainski from Revoize. Stanisław, founder of Revoize, has been a trailblazer in speech technology research and development for nearly 2 decades. His work with global giants like Intel, Cisco, has cemented his reputation as a leader in the field. At BabbleLabs, he played a pivotal role in creating industry-leading noise removal technology, later acquired by Cisco. Driven by a personal connection to the challenges of remote communication, he co-founded Cisco AI in 2021, a startup revolutionizing real-time speech accent transformation. Now at Revoize, his mission is to enhance the way we connect by creating technologies that make voice communication clearer, more natural, and less stressful for everyone. Matt is the head of product at Revoize, where he leads the charge in bringing its cutting-edge speech enhancement technology to market. With a rich background in software development spanning over a decade, Matt has tackled diverse challenges from building a movie streaming platform at Showmax to advancing robotics-related software at Mission Control Space Services. A global adventurer at heart, having lived in Poland, the Netherlands, and Czech Republic, and now Canada, Matt thrives in new experiences. At Revoize, he combines his passion for innovation with a commitment to revolutionizing how we connect through transformative speech technology. Gentlemen, welcome today. And who has a favorite quote or saying you want to share?
Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I remember hearing this quote by Steve Jobs in one of his public speeches that really stuck with me. He said that he does this thing every day in the morning where he looks in the mirror and asks himself, if today was the last day of your life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And if the answer is no, for too many days in a row, something's got to change. And I think it reminds me that just living in the moment, making sure that what I'm doing is relevant and I'm enjoying it, because now is all I have, right? And life is precious and fragile. And it's important to do things that are meaningful and fun.
So, Stanisław, what's the business tagline?
Our business tagline is studio quality speech every time.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And I actually do appreciate it, considering that this is a podcast and I try to get there as hard as I can. Open question. What inspired the creation of this company and what challenges have you addressed in remote communication?
Maybe I'll take the question. I have been working on technologies to improve speech quality for almost 10 years now. For a long time, I have seen that there is some sort of glass ceiling that limits what we can do with graded speech using conventional speech enhancement methods commonly implemented in communication platforms like Zoom or Google Meet. Even if those methods work perfectly, they could not fully restore speech into a detailed studio-like recording because they lack the capacity to regenerate any missing speech detail, which got removed somewhere in the voice communication chain. They could only remove things from speech, but not add anything that was missing. At the same time, I observed that remote interactions are becoming a significant portion of all professional interactions, especially post-COVID. In other words, we spend more time on calls at work. Any clarity or intelligibility issues translate into significant pain points for both the employees and companies. Personally, I often observe situations in which remote communication suffers from poor room acoustics, badly placed microphones, unstable connection, or accents I'm not fully accustomed to, or often a combination of the above. Voice communication under those conditions can be stressful, exhausting, or simply inefficient. So then Gen AI came along with new ideas, new methods, new approaches, and I saw an opportunity to break through that glass ceiling. Eventually, I did decide to take the leap of faith and started my own business centered around new possibilities offered by Gen AI for improving remote voice communication.
That's fantastic. So is it the pain point then, the hardware, the internet connection, and then the means of reporting that are all three contributors to that's unfortunate?
Yeah, there's so many things that can happen that can go wrong when we record and then transmit our voice. In the end, it often comes out degraded.
That speech is complicated, or voice audio is complicated in a way that when you're having a conversation face to face with someone, you don't really care about any form of background noise or reverb. We have evolved to have those conversations in a natural way, and our brains evolved to process that data in a very easy fashion. But when you suddenly put a microphone in front of someone and put it on headphones and through a headset or through speakers, the characteristic of that audio is different. Suddenly, the noise, the reverb, everything is mixed together with the speech, and that's making it very difficult to understand. Also, quality suffers. Transmitting audio through remote means like a cell phone network degrades the signal significantly. So the signal is not full. Audio is just very complicated, and every degradation is something that you can feel, and that adds to stress and complexity in processing.
How does your technology enhance clarity and reduce stress?
So our technology improves the quality and intelligibility of speech by means of AI. We have built AI models that we train by giving those models thousands of hours of high quality speech recordings, making sure that those models learn to transform any degraded speech into something that's fully detailed and clear to listen to, meaning that we also improve intelligibility of that speech, removing the stress factor. We're removing the cognitive load that would otherwise be necessary to focus on the speech signal enough to understand, to get rid of all the distractions, the background noise, the reverb, the degradations, the artifacts, and focus on the speech itself. Like we remove those distractions.
Is this almost like a software where it takes a picture and it's all blurry, and then you see the line going across, and all of a sudden everything comes into sharp focus, or it's a black and white, it's an old photo, and all of a sudden gets colorized? Is that doing that same thing, but in the sound level?
Yeah, that's a very good analogy.
Do you see this actually hitting therapy to people learning either new languages, all those elements, or they have a speech pathology? Is that some, I'm asking an out of blue question here. Do you see that also being a potential?
Certainly. It's out of our focus at the moment, but there is a potential to address those issues. AI-based technologies.
Speaking of other technologies that are out there, how does this compare to other platforms? There's one, I know it's meant for conference rooms to mitigate background sound. It's AI driven. It's not meant to enhance your voice, but it's meant to diminish the screaming kid and barking dog, or barking kid and screaming dog. The background mitigates them out a little bit. How is that compared to those other competitors?
Sure. So that's one differentiator. I think the competitors use those legacy conventional speech enhancement methods capable of removing what shouldn't be there, like dogs barking in the background, etc. What we do goes way beyond that. We not only remove the unwanted sounds, but also improve the quality of the speech signal itself, making it clearer and more intelligible. So that's one differentiator. And we are doing that using generative AI. Another differentiator is that our core philosophy is centered around human connection. So by removing these communication barriers like poor audio quality, background noise, etc., we're not just improving sound, we are improving how people can connect with each other, collaborate, and understand each other, whether in a professional setting or in a private personal conversation.
One thing that I don't understand we've done a couple hundred accents. Does the AI have problems with them? And how does it affect transcripts?
Sure. Accents do adversely affect transcripts. AI is not accustomed to various accents as much as we are as humans. It can be an obstacle in communication if people speaking to each other, they are not familiar, they are not accustomed to particular accents, and AI does offer solutions to help with that. we can build AI-based solutions that can transform accents in post-production, but also in real time. And it's just one of the many things transformative AI for speech can do for us. We can enhance the speech, we can change the accent, we can do voice conversion, so change one person's voice into another person's voice. There's a lot of transformations that we can achieve using AI.
There goes the voiceover business.
I was thinking the same thing.
There's a couple of people that we've interviewed in the past. What they do is voiceover, right? And the one gentleman, he says, yeah, it has its place, but it gets more interesting when all of a sudden you put in because he's done it for the medical industry and the pharmacology industry. And the verbiage is really long. It's a Latin name, some sort of variation. And all of a sudden to say that fluidly, even for a human being is like, yeah, you just stub your toe a few times, but he says it, he practices the art of that. So I'm almost taking that, what you're describing, what your platform is doing or will be doing is it'll capture information and move it around. So if I'm listening to someone, I think of the calls I've received, you want to have my ductwork clean. It's something that happens in Canada. Someone calls you up randomly and there's such a heavy accent, right? And I get what's happening. They're trying to make a buck. So I get all that piece. I'm having a dickens of a time understanding the person because the accent it's no real good clarity for myself, right? To get it. And at which point in time I'm going time out from a sales perspective, that bites, even though I don't want that spammy call. So your software will then help eliminate that communication in real-time communications.
So right now we are focusing on speech enhancement and speech reconstruction, but speech transformations, including accent transformation, is somewhere on our agenda. Then, of course, we would be able to help people with more unusual accents communicate better and maybe remove some biases that listeners might have when they speak to those people with accents.
Are some industries more dialed into a solution quicker, or is it agnostic?
We're currently focusing on offering an SDK, so anyone who would want to integrate it with their product can. There are some industries where they don't care about quality of the connection. They just care about having it as cheaply as possible. They're probably not the best customers for us. But there's a lot of industries where they care about building the connection, making sure that the conversation goes well. So if you're in sales and you're calling people, we talked with a few people here and they said that I get those phone calls, those sales phone calls attempts, and hear background noise. I can't understand the person. I just hang up. So for those cases, we could improve the quality and their chances of success. On the other hand, in some cases, you can have a call center where you're not really focused on the quality of the connection. You just want to have it done as cheaply as possible. So that may not be the best place for us. The connection has to be important, I would say. And you have to care about your connection with the customer. If you do, we can help. If you don't, then we can't help.
You were mentioning earlier that, if I'm wearing a headset, that I have a microphone in front of me, that it provides, and I'm going to assume a psychological impedance to having a natural conversation. How does this give a certain level of confidence to the person already and the person hearing it? And how do you know if you're having success in that communication process? If I'm talking right now and I structure my words out, make the statement, I can see right now because we're on a Zoom call. I can see by you looking at me going, what the heck's that guy saying? Versus comprehension's happening. How does the software tune into that part?
I would say we don't measure that directly, but for example, some video conferencing platforms can ask about quality after the call. They ask you, hey, how is the quality of the connection? And in other use cases, for example, sales, you can measure the effectiveness of the sales process. So you can measure your conversion rates, you can measure how successful you were as a salesperson, how happy your customers are, how engaged the conversation is. Not a lot of this you can measure in real time. Some things can be measured in a test setting where you can measure how people are engaged, whether they are activated and moving around or whether they're just sitting flat and not sure what to do. So depending on what we need to measure, some things we can measure by asking people how was the quality, whether it was good, whether it was bad. Some things you can measure by questionnaires, asking more detailed questions. Some things you can just measure by success.
Does it also measure it at the same time? Let's say the signal is choppy, right? There's interference. In other words, you and I are understanding each other well, and we have a visual cue going, yeah, we understand each other well. But as it goes into the recording, into the cloud, it goes, do you have some sort of way to detect the quality of the transmission and reception? Or is that after production?
In real-time voice communication, some things are monitored, like the condition of the network. Some packets are dropped, if there's gaps in the audio resulting from that. But in general, the quality of the voice is not measured directly. And I always thought platforms like Zoom would benefit from a feature like that. I spent a lot of time trying to make my voice sound better using microphones, listening to my own voice, but most users will not care enough about that to go to all the trouble. Sometimes their voice will be awful and they will be impossible to talk to. I encounter that regularly in my work. So I would really like that kind of feature to be included in those platforms. And that would also help us convince others that there is a need to improve the voice quality.
It can be as simple of a problem as that your computer decided to pick the wrong microphone. If you have a headset or your phone microphone, something is connected and it just picked the wrong one and you can't really, and that the quality suffers greatly. That's also an interesting problem. A fun fact is that measuring the quality of voice in real time is actually a complicated process. The established methods are using humans to evaluate that. There's a metric called the mean opinion score, which essentially is asking trained people to listen to an audio recording, evaluate how good the quality is. And you have to ask a few people and then you average it out. And the best we can do is approximate that with AI. Every method that we found so far has its own problems. So doing this even automatically is problematic and challenging and doesn't always capture the full picture.
That is interesting. My computer never switches the mic on. I love it when it switches the mic being the speaker. And I'm going, nothing, no sound at all, at least at my end. I enjoy those moments, said no one ever.
You have a world-class product for several countries. You also have a personal journey, which I think might have shaped the product. Can you tell me how your personal journey has shaped the product globally?
I think one of the most important things you learn when you start traveling around and living in different places is understanding that people think differently and the culture is different in different places. They focus on different things, they approach different things different way. And it makes you more open to understanding those differences when you're talking to people on the street or when you're talking business with potential clients. Having that feeling is very valuable and it helps you build a product that will be useful and usable by people all around the world. It also helps you see the barriers of your approach. So for example, I've never really lived in Asia. I've only been to Asia once. I know that the culture there is very different. So that's something we need to explore at some point. But I know that they think differently. I know that's a blind spot that we have to cover at some point.
And I can maybe add my personal journey perspective on that. I have experienced remote communication problems a lot in my life. Those can stem from bad connection, bad quality, bad equipment, but also it's related to how we convey additional information with speech. I'm talking about paralanguage. So anything that is conveyed that is not in the words themselves, but it's added on top of that. The further we go from a real life interaction, the more limited this information gets. When we disable video, we lose all the visual cues that help us understand what the other person is thinking, how they react to what we are talking about, etc. And the more you degrade speech after that, the more difficult it is for people to establish a human connection, emotional connection with each other. This is particularly difficult for me, having social anxieties. I often find myself being very stressed in those situations where I don't really understand what's happening. Is the other person angry, happy? What's happening? I need that kind of feedback to feel comfortable. And I think I'm not the only one out there. So this was one of the driving forces behind developing technology like we did at Revoize.
Are you finding it right now that your purpose is to improve the recording quality at the end of the day? What's being stored in the cloud or real-time communication? Are you layering any other features planning to layer any other features, you round it in Rev 2, where you're doing the universal translator, attach it to a Tower of Babylon moment where you have that's the magic. I say this and it comes out the right way. And I know Google Translate, if I do something into French and show that to a person who does French translation, they just give me the area eyeball later on. That's not the way to say it in French. You just said something completely different, right? You're phrasing it, especially if it's, I guess, maybe in Asia, it's just the inflection point's a bit different. And all of a sudden, not coming out the way you intended. You're trying to congratulate them on something and you just insulted them in the same throw.
At Revoice, we are currently focusing on the speech enhancement and improving quality of speech. And this will be our focus for some time. There's a long way ahead of us, I think, in terms of how much can we improve the speech itself. But we are very much interested in transformative technologies for speech, including translations, like real-time translations, voice conversions, the action transformation that we mentioned earlier. But it's difficult to predict what's going to happen in the AI world. It's developing so quickly and constantly surprises us with new disruptions. We are not sure exactly where we will go from here, but those are definitely interesting things for us.
I'm interested in your take of the crystal ball. Assuming this unfolds the way you hope, what do you hope it looks like in 2 years?
It's a rather short horizon for innovation. We hope that we will start seeing communication tools that are using our technology to communicate and people feel more connected. The communication is easier throughout those tools. If we integrate this technology with mobile phones for phone calls, that we integrate this technology with some video conferencing tools that is being just used by people, and they think it's actually helpful and communication is nicer. It's more natural. It's easier. I live right now in Canada and my family is, and my parents, my sister are back in Poland. Once in a while we call and they're in the middle of nowhere in Poland, in the countryside, and the quality of the connection is very bad. So whenever they call, the conversation doesn't really flow very smoothly. I hope we can improve that so we can have nice and natural conversations every time we talk.
Are you going to find that this innovation as you unfold it, because you just indicated that it's going to be embedded inside other components, other platforms. Is that the goal where you're looking to integrate your business into another business that does the communication links? Or are you offering a service where, hi, Bernie's talking with somebody and going, oh my gosh, I just did a recording and do I bring it over to you to car wash it and make it pretty and come back out and the sow's ear and mouth with silk first?
We're still fairly early in the business journey. We're exploring different verticals. We have a cloud platform where you can put a recording in and you can get that nice and polished recording out. So that's one thing we offer right now. But we think the biggest impact this technology can have, that the company can have, if it's integrated with existing tools that are used by millions, if not billions of people to communicate. We want to, as Stanisław mentioned, we want to focus on building technology related to speech and speech transformation. Right now, we would say we're not looking at building a video conferencing platform or a phone calling platform. We're good at speech transformation. We're good at making speech better. That is an intrinsic part of so many different products. So we think that the biggest value we can add to the world and to various businesses is if they integrate technology as a part of their product.
As you guys are using seed funding, government grants, how are you generating the lift to carry on and go boldly where no one else has gone in the voice space?
So actually both. We did go through a pre-seed funding round, and then we also received a government grant for what we do. Right now we are preparing to start fundraising as part of our seed round. We are exploring both traditional startup growth path through venture capital, but also we get some help from the government.
So how big a market is it then? Do you have a sense of that? How big this could be, or at least a start point?
We're looking at applications that have at least $1 billion total market size. We've identified a few angles like that, and we're checking if that application makes sense. To make those estimations accurately, we need to make some assumptions about how many users there are, how many hours of communication is happening. We want to bill, for example, by the hour of content processed, etc. that information is not necessarily always available. So we have to make estimations and then try to validate those. We're looking at total market sizes higher than $1 billion because otherwise venture capital would not be very happy with the progress.
To get to this stage, shaping it, where have you gotten your supports from? Has it been from government agencies? Has it been from particular people that, that are mentors, coaches? What supports have been around you to help guide you? You guys got the secret sauce now. This is how you flesh it out, code it, and so forth. Where are you getting the guiding hand from?
I would say we accept any help that anyone is willing to give us. We've encountered quite a few very knowledgeable and valuable people on our way to where we are right now. A lot of people contributed to the development of the technology, but also to the development of our startup.
With different countries, there's a difference between what is said and what is understood. How does software deal with the nuance of saying not only what you want to say, but how you want it received?
It's a very interesting question. In a similar line, we started recently pondering about what is a good voice. You probably know recording podcasts, some people have a nice radio voice and other people don't. So we're also wondering around the questions of maybe we don't only want to, because at the beginning we were thinking we want to make sure that you sound like you, but record it in a studio. So that was our primary guiding factor, so that your voice is preserved, your character, your timbre of the voice is preserved. But then we started thinking you also want to explore a little bit changing that. So make your voice a little bit more, radio voice a little bit nicer to listen to, a little bit more connectable. And those are interesting psychological questions from different areas of psychology that we are pondering. And somewhere there is the question of how do we help you be understood and make sure that the message you're trying to convey is the right message? It's a very interesting problem. We don't have an answer right now, but we acknowledge that it's there and we're curious to see how it's going to evolve.
Looking back at where you started up to where you are now, what things would you have done differently?
It's an interesting question.
A difficult question.
It's hard to answer sometimes because we did certain things because we had certain beliefs and we made certain assumptions and they ended up not being true. We've learned. For example, if we knew what we know now, we would have taken a different path, but we've taken the path and we've learned those things. So we are ahead.
If you think of it this way, if you're giving someone advice and you're the mentor a decade from now, and you're looking over going, buddy, you're writing some great code, you're going to use AI, that's a good thing. And there's some things that are eternal, time immemorial. There's certain fashions that, hold true. It doesn't matter what area you're in. And so sometimes there are things that you learn or come across going, yeah, when this shows up, either jump on it, don't jump on it, or tweak it. Any of those things resonate with you that you would have encountered going, great idea, and we should have done that a little later or a little earlier?
Maybe we're too early in our development of our company, and those things are usually clear in hindsight, but not really obvious at all during the process. So I think we're not there yet. Once we fail or succeed, we'll probably have a lot of stories to tell about how we should have done things differently or made different choices.
I think just my own personal viewpoint is that you're already a success because you're already pointing in a direction. That's half the battle. And Matt did a presentation at the Network Network demo, so that's what caught my eye. I'm curious, being a podcaster, how do I make that much better? This is really awesome. I guess the next question to ask is, who are you trying to reach next? Money's always good, but who are you trying to reach next to bring the game up to the next level?
Our current target is trying to reach companies that are providing internet phone services, cloud phone services. There are businesses where the product is an app that you have on your computer and you make phone calls from that app that's usually used by salespeople or call centers. We would really like to talk with those people and see if there's a place for our technology in their stack. Something that's recently coming up is using this technology in video production and movie production specifically for automatic dialogue replacement. Sometimes you record a movie scene and someone makes a little bit of noise and you have to re-record the audio. When that process is costly, we think we can tear down the cost of that process, and that's something that we've been thinking about as well. And I recently heard that in Canada, specifically in Vancouver, a lot of movie recording studios and a lot of the industry is moving to Canada because the labor cost is a little bit cheaper from the US and the scenery is still beautiful. The cities are beautiful. So I've heard that a lot of movie productions moving to Canada. And beside that, we're hungry for new ideas. We've been focusing, for the most part, developing the technology, figuring out what the product should be, and we're definitely open to new ideas. We have a technology, it's working, we're very proud of it, and we want to find a good home for it. We believe it can be transformational. We believe it can change people's lives. We believe it can make the world a better place and make remote communication easier and more natural. If you're listening to this and you feel like, hey, that's somewhere where I could use this in what I'm doing, just reach out to us. We're definitely curious to hear your story.
When you hear the first buzz, people are selling everything as if it was instant. From what you've seen, the big difference between what's out there in AI and what people say is out there. What's the difference? What's being oversold?
I think there's a very big difference between a prototype and a product, or a demo and a product. So there's a lot of capabilities that you can make it look nice, but it has a lot of problems, right? So image generation, video generation, there are ways in which those are good technology, right? There are also ways in which they're still not there and they have their own issues. So I think the biggest challenge right now is there's a lot of these interesting and exciting things coming up, and you see a nice shiny demo that looks great, but how does that compare with reality? And that's something we're trying to be transparent with our partners and clients. We're always showing actual technology, how it's working. We're not handcrafting the results. We're just showing this is what it is. It may not be perfect yet. We're working on it. We're making it better. We believe it will get much better. But yeah, that's a big challenge, I think.
At the end of the day, folks want to reach out to you and say, listen, we want to try this, do a taste test to see if this would integrate well with our platform. Or if someone like me goes, here's a file, can we clean it up? How do we get a hold of you? What are the next steps?
Yeah, so if you just want to try out the technology and you have a file, go to our website, revoize.com, and you can access our platform there. We offer 1 hour of free processing per month to anyone who signs up. If you'd like to try it out, just go through that. If you want to reach out to us to schedule a meeting, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is in the show notes. You can find me on LinkedIn or send us an email at hi@revoize.com or matt@revoize.com. I think that's the easiest.
I want to say, first of all, gentlemen, thank you so much. Stanisław and Matt, I appreciate your time today. My co-host, Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So, listeners, if you're into getting good fidelity of your voice or your sound, these are the gents to reach out. If you have a platform that needs more tweaking or needs that added boost, these are the gents to talk to.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATINSIG.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert, Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host, Jovan Strika from Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space, then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive 8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.